What's up, peeps? It's Eben. It's funny doing this over and over again. It gets a little stale saying the same thing all the time, you know? Ex-NFLer turned yogi. It's fun. You know what it is. It's excellent to be with you guys. I'll say that. That is for certain. I hope this finds you standing in your highest greatness, living with strength and courage for the highest good. I know it is. I know you are. Today's episode, really fun one with a soul brother on the journey. His name is Chase Hobby. Spent 10 years in the Navy as a pilot, flying jets, landing on aircraft carriers, all kinds of cool stuff. He was the systems analyst or weapons, in Top Gun, he was Goose, as he will explain to you. And him and his partner, Evan Seal, business partner, another ex-military, I believe, Special Forces. They've created one hell of a company. It's a CBD company, Verb Labs, VRB Labs. Really incredible products. I got introduced. These guys, Chase reached out to me a little while ago, probably back during the hotboxing days, so a couple of years ago now, and just said he was a fan. He appreciated the movement and all of it, and shared with me what he was doing, and finally we got connected, and I love their story. I love what they're doing. Their products are fantastic. Which reminds me, you lucky listeners are getting a very special offer from Chase and Evan at Verb Labs on their exquisite CBD. Use code EbenFlow20 at purchase on VRBLabs.com. I tell you what, their work CBD tincture is phenomenal. It's one of the best CBD tinctures I've ever taken. No bullshit. Their sleep tincture is phenomenal as well. It's excellent. Their formulations are great. Products are super effective. They work. I talk about that a lot. When you're purchasing supplements, CBD, whatever it might be, you want this stuff to work. You want to feel a difference. And their stuff is absolutely awesome. So I highly encourage you to check them out. And I'm excited to support these guys. Love our military brethren, brothers and sisters who have served, and love to do anything I can to support them. So I think you will enjoy this conversation as well with Chase Hobby of VRB Labs. Check it out. Before I let you go, Bioptimizers, baby. Our good friends at Bioptimizers, an incredible combination, high potency magnesium, one of the most quintessential minerals that our body needs to maintain total well-being. Helps us deal with inflammation and stress, helps us sleep better, calms our nervous system. It's fantastic stuff. Magnesium Breakthrough from Bioptimizers. There is no better product in the magnesium realm than Magnesium Breakthrough from Bioptimizers. And you can find that at magbreakthrough.com/ebenflow. Use code EbenFlow10 on checkout to get 10% off your next order. I highly recommend it. If you take nothing else, take this product. It works. I'm telling you. I use it every day. Magnesium is a big one for me. So that's about it, y'all. Lots of love to you guys. Have an excellent rest of your day. Enjoy this episode, and I'll see y'all on the flip side. Peace.
You have unlocked the eternal link to internal source. The key of imagination, your admission. Access to the enlightened dimension. A gateway be at the junction of darkness and light, the place at which the chaos of our conditioned frame of mind give way to a life in constant flux, only to be mastered through vigilant discipline. Peaceful times may come, testing times may go. This is the ebb and flow.
Chase Hobby, what's up, my brother?
Not a mucho, man. Very, very glad to be here. Thanks again for having me, man. I really do appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. I'm stoked to dive into your story, talk about what you're doing, to be of service in this world. It's really important. It's great stuff. So we were just talking before we got started. I asked you when you left the military. And I think that maybe before we get into that point, let's backtrack a little bit and talk about your life going through the military, what drove you into the military, how you came into that world, and where you come from. I guess that's the best place to start.
Yeah, start beginning from the beginning. I grew up in Clearwater, Florida, right outside of Tampa, and I played sports, did everything you're supposed to do, I think, as a kid, and I always sort of saw myself as as a aspiring athlete to one degree or the other, and it sort of, as I grew up, I sort of became or it became clear to me that I wanted to do something sort of outstanding with my life. I wanted to serve, and I was just trying to figure out as a kid, how best to do that. And it also occurred to me that, when it came time to figuring out college, that, there was nobody to pay for it. There was there was a due gap there. So figuring out how I was gonna do that was sort of on my mind early. And so, luckily for me, I had folks that, what they lacked in financial ability, they more than made up for in good direction. And so, essentially it was like, hey, you need to do great in school and be great on the field. And luckily that sort of worked out. And the bottom line is I ended up getting a appointment to the U.S. Naval Academy in Annapolis, which was fantastic. And I was super lucky to get there. I was super lucky to be there, and ultimately very lucky to graduate from there. And so did that for 4 years. Played rugby along with stints playing football and soccer. And so the short and long of it is I was, again, just very lucky to be there, and even more lucky to graduate with a set of orders to flight school in Pensacola, Florida. So I was a naval flight officer from that point on for 10 years in the fleet, as it were. And again, like lots to unpack there, but the bottom line is it's the best job there is. End of sentence. It's certainly the best job in the military, flying and doing all that off the aircraft carrier. So that was incredible.
That's incredible.
And yeah, like I said, man, 10 years of that. And I got out, 2.5 years ago-ish, 3 years ago, I guess.
Yeah, that's amazing. So Annapolis, that's a big deal, man, to go to that school. I mean,
I was fired up to
West Point, I mean, you're talking about, what does that mean? Talk about the meaning of that as far as the military goes and the tradition and the history of the people who have gone through a place like Annapolis and what that means for your military trajectory.
Yeah, in terms of trajectory, there's to become an officer in the military, there's a few ways to do it. There's ROTC. If you go to Florida State University or University of Arizona or whatever it is, you can go that route. You can go to Officers Candidate School, which is, hey, I've been to college and maybe I'm 2 or 3 years out of college now, or maybe I just graduated college and all of a sudden I have the urge to become a Marine Corps officer. That's the route you would go in that case. And then there's the academy. So like you said, West Point, Annapolis, the Air Force Academy, et cetera.
Right.
And, at the end of the day, we all wear the same uniform. We all wear the same rank. If you're a second lieutenant or an ensign, nobody cares or knows where you came from. So it is what it is. But as any good, I think, academy grad would tell you, it's the best way to go. It's sort
Yeah.
of the harder route to take. I would again, my opinion only. It's a little bit of a harder route to take insofar as you start early and sort of stay on the grind from 18 years old on.
Right.
But that said, it also comes with the what you get out of it, I think, is impossible to sort of quantify, at least for me. As you sort of alluded to, it is steeped with tradition. That's where the heaps of astronauts and presidents and admirals
Right.
and generals and these people who you read about in the history books, like I think 5 or 6 doors down from my room when I was a sophomore at school was Jimmy Carter's room.
It's amazing.
My buddy lived next to or lived in James Stockdale's old room from very stoic fame from the Hanoi Hilton. So he lived in James Stockdale's room, and so you're constantly surrounded by this, this tradition that it's really hard to quantify, and it really, at least in my case, I 100% believe that just being there and being surrounded by the tradition and being surrounded by incredible people and sort of folks that we're all at least attempting, aspiring to hold ourselves to a very high standard, made me, it just made me a better person and put me personally on a different trajectory than I would have been otherwise.
Yeah. When you're actually the second guy I've had on the pod from Annapolis, I had this guy named John Foley, who's the lead pilot of the Blue Angels.
I listened to that. I listened to that episode. It was good.
John's a maniac and totally awesome. But very elite pilots. I what's the word? Because I want to say Air Force, but you're the Navy pilots.
Yeah,
you guys
there's naval aviation.
Naval aviation, and that distinction of taking off and landing on aircraft carriers is fucking mind-blowing to me. Out on the ocean.
It's obviously there's some good friendly
competition of course
with the Air Force, obviously, but the naval aviation group, it's just one of those things. I was very lucky to be a part of it, and
yeah,
it's
cool.
It is all those things. It's like it's a fantastic group to be a part of. It's fun, it's scary, it's exciting. It's you get to extend your time on a team. As an adult, you get to continue to be on a team and sort of there's nothing like coming aboard at night in stormy weather and then living through it, living to tell the tale, and then everybody kind of getting together for a meal afterwards and kind of looking around and just like, we're having a good time, we're laughing, we're telling jokes, but it's like, gosh, that was some real shit that just happened.
No doubt.
And yeah, in my case, like there's two groups of guys. Essentially, there's pilots and naval flight officers. I was a naval flight officer, which essentially just means, like, if you've seen Top Gun, I was the Goose character in that setup. And so we run like the weapon systems, we run the nav, the comms, depending on what jet or what platform you're in, and the camaraderie and sort of again, just being on a team and getting to do it was awesome.
Yeah, there's nothing like it. There's nothing like that, especially when you get into the real world. Even, you can't find that type of team team atmosphere and camaraderie and brotherhood and the corporate world. It just doesn't exist, you know. And
Yeah.
most places you go, it just doesn't exist. People don't understand how powerful that is when you work together with people who are on the same mission as you know.
I 100% agree. And I also think it's like, it's a mission thing, but it's also um, there has to be a certain amount of strain to build those relationships and to really,
Absolutely.
it has to be hard, like hard. And this is
Absolutely.
like such um, a trope at this point, but all the good things in life are behind a very thick door, and that door is tough to get through. And so, being in sort of extremis or in duress with a group of people, for whatever reason, and in most cases we all choose it. It's what we want to do, but it doesn't mean it's easy. Um, you have to like do that to make those friendships and to feel, I think, fulfilled. At least in my experience, that's the case.
Absolutely, dude. I don't, I think that at this stage in Western culture, it's becoming un, unavoidably obvious how important it is to struggle and strain in life, to achieve true happiness and true joy in one's heart. You have to go through difficult things. We're wasting away in comfort in 2021 America, honestly. I mean, most people,
Yeah.
we don't have to find our food, we don't many of us can make, obviously there's tons of poverty and that's a struggle and a strain in itself. But, for the most part, the modern American needs to go out and seek out the strain and the struggle and do the difficult things to engage or activate themselves fully in their lives.
I
Something
would
you
agree
said
with I would agree with
earlier.
that.
Yeah, I mean, you said something earlier that I thought was really profound about what drove you into the military, or what was sort of a guiding post for you was you wanted to live what was the word you used? You wanted to live a exceptional life, something to that effect, and you wanted to do something big with your life. And I totally get that. I mean, when I was going into high school, it was either for me, I was either going to play pro football or I was going to be a Navy SEAL. And I'm glad the pro football worked out, because I don't know if I would have cut it.
Uh,
Honestly, I'm not that good in the water, but it just always like called out to me. And I remember seeing those guys and watching those movies and reading the books and just hearing about that life. Like, I wanted the same thing. I want my life to be exceptional. I want to be of service to this world in a way beyond my flesh. You know what I mean?
100%. I
And
actually like would love to hear your thoughts on that, because like that's something I've never been able to put my finger on. Uh,
mm,
all the deepest I can get to it is just to say like I knew that I wanted to not to be exceptional. I wanted
mm,
to do something exceptional. I wanted to,
uh-huh.
what I saw around me wasn't terrible, but it was just not of interest to me. Like I was like, I want to get out into the world and and
Mm,
really explore the far bounds of what is possible for me,
I love
just
that.
to see what's out there and to live it. And
Absolutely.
that's the extent of it. I don't really know where that comes from or
Right.
what that is, but I don't know if that resonates with you. But that was certainly the case for me.
Absolutely, man. It totally resonates. And it resonates every day for me. I find myself rejecting the common comforts, rejecting the status quo at every turn these days. It's like, how do we get into the adventure? How do we get into the exceptional life? What are the things, the practices that I can apply in my daily ritual to give me this experience of something bigger than myself, you know? And that, and that's not always jumping on the flight to India or whatever it is, especially in the
Right.
COVID era where, travel out of the country has become difficult, if not
Yeah.
impossible.
Right.
But it's like, how am I going to make myself uncomfortable today? What am I going to do? And that always starts with breath work. Breath work, I think, is a profound tool of making yourself really uncomfortable, fearing that death, that fear response of I'm going to die in a way that you can do it that's, where it's totally contained and you get something really profound out of it. Or the hot yoga or getting a hard workout or going out and getting a hike in. Usually it has to do with moving your body and
Yeah.
exercising, which is why I think this digital era that we're in, like I said, going back to that thing of, yes, perhaps it is a trope to guys like us, to see the David Goggins videos or the, Jocko Willinks or whoever it might be who's talking about get after it, go hard or go home, that type of thing. But the world truly needs that. You read, my brother gave me this incredible book. It's the yogic teachings of Vivekananda, and Vivekananda was one of the first yogis to come to America in like the 1890s. And he went to the World's Fair in Chicago and just fucking blew people's minds talking about the spirit and the heart and getting out of the head and tapping into your intuition and the soul of man. And in there, he literally talks about making yourself as strong as possible. And strength is the remedy to the world's disease, which is weakness and fear. And this is a yogic mystic from the 19th century, and this is what these guys talk about. No one in there is talking about getting softer. No one's talking about getting weaker. It's all about making yourself as strong and resilient as possible. And it might seem counterintuitive to say like, oh, if you meditate, you're getting stronger. But the act of meditation is cultivating your capacity to endure discomfort. Just like the hot yoga room or, the fucking trials and tribulations of going into the military or professional sports. And, we look at these characters and from the plane of existence of modern American life where it's like, you sort of climb you do the education thing, you go to college, you get the 9-to-5 job, you watch football on Sundays or whatever it is you do. That sort of, I'm not going to say that's not exceptional, but it's just sort of the mundane things of life. If you're trapped in the mundane cycle of modern civilized existence and you're looking at these characters and you're going, wow, look at how lucky they are to be able to do what they love and get paid for it or make it their life. And it's like, no, that's a choice. That's a total choice that these people have made. And it's not about being lucky. We all create our own luck, with the amount of work that we put forth. There is no
You're,
such thing as just like stepping in dog shit. Yeah, I mean, you know, like, yes, some people are born into extreme wealth and have much more given to them as far as their life path goes and what they're born into. But still, those people, if they're not willingly, willfully, consciously engaging themselves in things that fill them with fulfillment and joy and a sense of overcoming adversity, those people are perhaps the most cursed because you're born into this life without purpose, without meaning.
100%. There's like, you
So,
just reminded me of briefly, just like one of I guess my last duty station, I was in San Diego. And, it just reminds me of, I'd have buddies or girlfriends or people that would say like, hey, like, hey, it's Sunday, we're gonna go over here and watch some football, or hey,
Mm.
it's Saturday, let's go out and we're gonna go day drinking in PB and Pacific Beach,
Yeah.
whatever. And like,
Of
like, I'm not
course.
saying any of that's a bad thing, because
No,
it's not.
no, none of
And
it
I've
is
like
for
I've done
sure.
more than my fair share of all that. But I remember like thinking to myself,
Me
I'm like,
too,
man, there's
just to
like,
be clear.
there's yeah, exactly. There's like there's hikes, there's the
Mm.
swell is up, there's like surfing down. I lived right next to I lived in Encinitas, and I was like
I
right
love that.
there. There's like
The
plenty of
best.
surfing constantly. And I was like, I can't justify sitting in a room watching other people move their bodies and be physical and get after it. I just can't do it. I'm going to be out there. I'll check the scores maybe later. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. But like,
Yeah,
I'm going to be outside, like getting some. Like I'm out there
absolutely, man.
living life. And to the point that you made before, I think just like you said, there's a caveat that there's poverty in the world, there's food scarcity, there's all of that is true. And so all of the advances that we've made in terms of trying to get more people fed and more people above the poverty line and more people living a life worthy of a human life is incredible, and is to be congratulated and celebrated, and it's amazing. The the negative externality there, as far as I can tell, is what you said, which is uh, that creates conditions that do not require what I think are sort of like the ancestral living
Yeah,
conditions of a human being, which is to sort of have a a life of struggle, struggling to find food, struggling to be secure, all of that. And it's amazing that we get to live in houses now. It's amazing that you get to open up your refrigerator and pull food out.
mm,
Those are all incredible things. But to your point, it has created conditions where now folks, if they even know to do it, they have to go out and seek that discomfort to uh,
right.
in order to grow. And I think growth requires discomfort. And so luckily for me, we were lucky enough to either meet people or be put in situations or just like be in cultures that sort of know that inherently and put us into those situations. And so ultimately, we probably over time just learned that intuitively. Like, yes, every time I have felt
Yeah,
great and really felt truly alive, I'm going through some sort of crucible, whether through by myself or with my friends or whatever it is.
yeah,
Whereas I think most folks just don't even know that that's available to them, or don't know how to do it, or whatever it is. And so, I think there's like a right now,
yeah.
for at least my perception is there's a movement, a very small movement, but that's becoming more of a thing. There are the Goggins and the Jockos out there, and people are taking ice baths and
Yeah.
doing the breath work and all that. 15 years ago, none of that was a thing. At least
Oh, I
for me,
know.
that none of that was in
I
my
know.
in my field of view. So it's happening, but it's like it's still certainly not the majority,
I
and
think
and it's a very small minority, I would think.
I don't know. I think it's growing, man. I think it's growing
I
rapidly.
agree.
I think people are really tapping into it, you know.
I agree. And
Um
it's becoming more mainstream. Like, you see meet folks out there who are like, who you would not think of it, but they're like, hey man, you heard of Goggins?
yeah.
I'm out
Or
here
Wim
getting some,
Hof.
man. And you're like, yeah, like I'm out here freaking getting it. I'm like, all right, man, let's
I
let's
love
let's
that,
freaking
dude.
go. I know, me too. It's good stuff.
um Going back to something you said to answer, or to, I don't know, to peel back another layer of this question you had. What is that thing that drove you to live an exceptional life, has driven me to live an exceptional life? It's that same thing that's in you, looking at the people at the beach getting after it from the balcony or whatever, wherever you were, and going,
Hmm.
I think I'd rather be out there. It's that
Yeah,
same thing. I don't know what that is either, man, because you're right. Not everybody thinks that way. Some people are totally cool just hanging out, and that's cool too. There's nothing wrong with that at all. Honestly, there really isn't. There
right.
isn't anything wrong with that. It's just it's an interesting look at to me the role of spirit, because it could be chalked up to who your parents were, how you grew up, the environment of your childhood, uh, a movie you saw, a conversation you had, a mentor you had. It could be chalked up to all of those things, but at the end of the day, I played my high school football coach. Oh, I've had a lot of coaches who have meant a lot to me and been great mentors and teachers and great men to aspire to be like, and to model myself after. But those guys were in the lives of a lot of guys. Those guys were the coaches and the mentors, the teachers for a lot of guys who didn't necessarily choose to do the things I've done or be as extreme as I have become. In my, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. It's like this relentless, this relentless pursuit of polishing the crystal, as Vivekananda would say. We have our essence. If you imagine our soul essence as this crystal, and you spend your entire life clearing out the clouds and polishing that crystal and clearing away the obstructions to it so that it can be at its most crystalline and pure to express its true essence. That's really, I guess, at the end of the day, everything I do is in accordance with that mission, I guess, or that idea about what I'm trying to do with my life, at the end of the day,
Totally.
to be as present and aware as I possibly can be at all times.
That's really interesting. That I don't know. That concept is super interesting. I think it's like it's a sibling to the way I've thought about it, which is, I don't know what I really truly don't know what the goal is. I don't know what I'm trying to do here. I've got like a couple ideas and like a very loose, amalgamation of concepts that I'm kind of like that resonate with me. And essentially I know where true north is. I don't
Yeah,
know. I
yeah.
don't know. Is it 010? Is it
Mm,
275? Or is it,
mm,
300 or whatever? I don't really know exactly where it is, but I know that generally speaking, if I put the compass on north and start sort of walking in that direction, sometimes I'm zigging, sometimes I'm zagging, but for the most part, I'm pressing in that direction. And over time, my the cone of
mm,
where I'm tracking just gets
totally.
tighter and tighter. And one of these days, I'm guessing that I'll be like this. I'll never know, but I'll, at some point, in the future, I will feel like, yeah, you know what, like I didn't know when I was 25, 35, whatever, what this game plan was, or that I wanted to end up here, but here I am, and that was just a series of like of self discovery, doing the thinking, sitting down to truly try to make my life as thoughtful, execute my life as thoughtfully as I possibly can.
Mm.
And my sincere hope and my belief is that that will ultimately put me in a position that I end up where I want to end up, which is I don't know if that's polishing the crystal or what, but
Absolutely.
I'm
No,
tracking in a direction.
it's that totally resonates for me as a very, yeah, it's another analogy for whatever the fuck this thing is. You
Yeah,
know what
one
I mean?
hundred percent.
Like there's something going on. There's a light at the end of the tunnel that we're like sort of moving towards always.
Yeah.
You know?
Sometimes I'm shucking, sometimes I'm jiving, but
Oh
generally
yeah.
speaking, I'm tracking in the right direction.
Yeah, exactly. You know where you're going, you just don't know how you're going to get there.
Exactly. And
Also,
the good
you
news
know?
about that is you're figuring out as you go, and the more steps in the more you actually, no kidding, take steps in that direction,
Yeah.
things you make yourself lucky, and you learn as you go. And so gosh, in my case, like I feel like I'm in a position that 5 years ago, when I was thinking about, hey, am I going to stay in? Am I going to get out? What am I going to do?
Mm.
I had no idea any of this was available to me. I had no idea that any of this would be an interest to me. Uh, but I just started taking steps in the direction, and at some point, a light bulb goes off, or somebody presents himself or themselves, and some concept pops up in my field of view. And all of a sudden I'm like, yep, this is it. I didn't know that this was what I was looking for, but I found it. And that was only because I was able to identify that I, no kidding, want to walk in this direction and not let life happen to me. I want to happen to it.
Fucking A, dude. Fucking A. So let's go back to 10 years in the military.
That's right.
What was that experience like?
Gosh, man, it was amazing. It was all of it. The best, the worst. It was,
Let's talk about...
it was the best thing I've ever done with my life. And I could
Amazing.
not, I just imagine if, I had 300 years to live, I'd want to do that for 150 of them.
Wow.
It's an
Amazing, dude.
incredible thing to do, I think, with your life if you are so inclined.
Absolutely, dude. So let's talk about, because I imagine you you endured a significant amount of pain and suffering during that experience, to some extent.
Yeah, to some extent, I think everybody gets just, if you choose to do something like that with your life, there's going to
Yeah.
be dings and bruises along the way. But
Yeah, absolutely.
it's there are guys that get truly dinged up and truly give the full measure of devotion, which is a whole different story. But the bottom line is, I think most everybody gets good and dinged up, and it's just part and parcel of living a life like that.
So I appreciate that. I appreciate what you're saying there. And so you experienced you had your own experience, and you saw what happened to other guys. Tell me about how you came, like when you came out of that career, when you came out of that life, or what was it that brought you to the place where you felt as though you were done? And I'll share mine too if you're
Yeah,
interested in that.
I would love to hear it. I was actually, I know the exact moment. Um, I had been sort of, I'd been thinking about it for a long time. I had plenty of time to think about it, but I'd been thinking about it. What do I want out of my life? Do I want to be, a 30-year, uh, you know,
Mm,
Navy guy? Is that going to be what I'm about? And there's real greatness in that. And I thought very, very hard about doing that.
mm,
You know, seeing how far I could take that until the wheels fell off.
mm,
Um, I thought very hard about that. And I also knew somewhere that there was like other things that I wanted to do.
mm.
And I sort of saw myself as, my self-image was that of a, multi-trick pony. I was like,
Mm.
yes, I am this is an aspect of my image, my self-image and who I am, but I'm also, I'm not just the military officer. I'm not just the Navy guy. I also have all these interests over here, and I would like to see what the world has to offer. You know, I'd like to travel more as a civilian, just for fun. I would like to try my hand at business. I would like to just be more flexible to do things like come home for Christmas to see my
Right.
family and just be able to stay and sort of figure out when I want to go back home. Without
Yeah.
having to say like, hey, hobby, you've got 5 days of leave. We'll see you in 5 days. We'll see you at 06 in the morning after
Yeah.
the fifth day. I was just curious about what that life had in store for me, but at the end of the day, I just didn't know how to make that decision because I wasn't running screaming from the Navy. I loved it. So it was a
Mm.
question of like, how the hell do I make this decision? And I essentially just, I noodled on it for a period of probably
Mm.
years and really kind of came down to, for me, it came down to, I was driving into work one day. I had a very early early brief for a really good deal flight on a Friday morning. So it was like 4:30 in the morning. I'm driving into work, and I'm going to go have this flight where we're going to take a jet through the mountains in Washington State. So we're going to be flying, 500 knots, 500 feet, very low, very fast through these mountain, through initially through like a gorge, like a ravine, and then
It's
into these
fucking
mountains.
dope.
It's super dope. And it's like, it's awesome. And it's like, frankly, it's a lot of fun, and it's not like that tactically taxing. So there's not like a whole lot of thinking you have to do
Mm,
going into it. It's just a lot of, getting to use your skill set and more
right.
just flow state
Yeah,
than
yeah.
anything else.
Getting into the
So
flow.
it's great, and it's beautiful. It's like wintertime in Washington State. It's beautiful, and I'm driving in to work, and I worked on Whidbey Island. So there's on my right hand side, there's the Puget Sound with all these islands. The sun is rising. It's like impossibly picturesque.
Mm,
And then on the left side of the road is the flight line. So it's a bunch of uh, uh, G variant of the F-18. So it's all these sort of jets, little jets that
mm,
launch off the aircraft carrier lined up, and there's like mist on the ground. And so
mm.
all these jets are lined up perfectly, and everything is just like, it looks incredible. And I'm about to go on this incredible flight, and I'm looking around. I'm like, man, it literally does not get any better than this. This is amazing. I'm about to have a great day. I'm already having a great day. This is amazing. You know, am I cool? Like, do I want to do this? It's never going to be better than this, but I could just do this more. And I was like,
Mm.
I've gotten a chance to do this. I I love it. I don't want to go. Like I said, if I had more life to live, if I had a 300-year life, I would just do this more and still have time to do other things that I wanted to do. But I was just like, I, you know, I've gotten a chance to do this. I loved it. Um, and I'm certain that I will miss it, but I just got to go. There's other things calling me and pulling me to go see what else is out there. Um, and so in that moment, I was like, I think I just made the decision. I'm gonna
Wow.
start tracking my way out of the military. And I told my skipper uh, pretty soon thereafter. I was like, hey, and he's like a mentor. He was absolutely like my guy who I didn't want to disappoint. I wanted to make him proud, and I wanted to follow in his footsteps and all that. And I told him, I'm like, hey man, here's kind of what I'm thinking. And he thankfully he told me like, hey, I'm going to try to convince you to stay because I want you to stay. But if you want to get out, I will do everything and anything to help you get out gracefully and to get to where you want to go and all that. And so again, just like incredibly lucky to have somebody like that to
Yeah,
help me
that's
make that
awesome.
make that transition. But that's that's how I decided.
Amazing, dude. How incredible. That's pretty epic. You're driving in and that you're seeing that and all that's running through your head.
100%. But at the end of the day, like the thing the lesson that sort of taught me was like that was such a big momentous decision. I'm not just going to sit down and put an hour on the calendar to like do a pros and cons list and then know at the end of the hour what I'm going to do with this like massive decision. It was weeks and months of like just hanging it around in top of my head or in
Mm.
my head and trying to figure out like what
Mm-hmm.
the what were what was pushing me in a direction or what was pushing me to stay and all that. And I put myself into a position to have that sort of like aha moment. But I
Mm.
think that like all that pre-work and sort of thinking hard and
Yeah.
just doing the work put me in a position to like have that realization where I was able to say, I'm ready to make this decision. This is my decision, and I'm not gonna I'm not gonna backtrack on that decision. I've made the decision, and
Yeah.
now I'm going.
That's important.
Tell me about you. Tell me about how that happened.
I will. I'm curious though. How long were you pinging that around in your head? How long were you going? Am I done or am I going to make this my career? How long was that?
I want to say probably about a year,
A
and that's
year.
it's because I think well, the way I think about it is there's a process in the military, where you basically are starting to jockey for your next set of orders. Like, okay,
Right,
my
right,
time in this squadron is ending, and now I've got to go do something else. And so that
right.
something else was, you know, I essentially
Un-
had a handful of years before I was going to get out of the military, but it was like, hey, am I going to go? If I take this set of orders, this is a good set of orders to execute to stay in. This is going to keep me on like the golden path and like and
mm,
sort of make it so that
right.
I continue to promote and advance and do all those things. Whereas if I go over here, this is a good answer for me if I want to get out and sort of start taking steps to get out, like
Mm-hmm.
get giving myself a little bit more elbow room to, in my case, to take the GMAT. I eventually decided that my best path out was to go to business school, and so I was like, well, I had better make sure that, I don't remember what the equation for a triangle is. I'm gonna have to kind of like get back into the books and like figure it all out. Oh yeah, one
Yeah,
half base
yeah.
times height. Got it. So like I took a set of orders that gave me a little bit of elbow room to start progressing out.
Yes, I understand. Because if you took the orders to stay in, that would be probably like what, another 4 year commitment or something, or a 5 year commit, or a numerous year commitment. Is that the
Yeah,
way it works? Like you're signing a new
ramp up the
contract
commitment.
with a team, basically.
Yeah, exactly. You're like you are getting back into the and honestly, it's like also a question of like, hey, is your head and your heart in it?
Right. Oh yeah, totally,
If you're gonna go,
totally,
if you're gonna take these
totally,
orders and go show up to a squadron, whatever that
thousand
squadron that
percent,
is, that's a job, and
absolutely.
there's a lot of work that goes into that, and a lot of your life sort of effort. And if you're 1 foot
Yeah,
in, 1 foot out, not only are you not going to perform as well as you possibly could, but and you're not going to be the officer or whatever it is that you're supposed to be. But it's also, you as a person are going to know that you're half-assing it, because on the one hand, like, yeah, I'm putting in all the work over here, and then I got to go home and start studying for the GMAT, or figuring
right,
out
right.
what university I want to get into, and writing essays and whatever else. And like, there's a certain amount of that you can avoid. But
Yeah,
I certainly didn't want to show up to particularly a flying squadron and be that guy that was like, hey, Meg, okay, I've done my 9 to 5 or whatever, and now I got to go write essays. That's
yeah.
just not a good dude
That's how you, in your
maneuver.
profession, that's how people get killed. I
Yeah,
mean,
100%. And
if
that,
you're
I
not
mean,
totally engaged in that, you can't do that.
yeah, it's not good. And you know, they always say like the rule books are in our profession written in blood, and at the end of the day, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. It's like it's just not professionally cool to be that
Yeah,
guy that's not like all in.
absolutely, dude. I totally get it. For me, it's interesting to hear you say, I wasn't running screaming from the military, to put it in those terms. Because for me, it was like, was I running screaming? I wasn't running screaming. I was probably crawling on my hands and knees. And, uh, I had this vision to play pro football from the time I was about 7 years old. My entire life had been about being this NFL football player from 13 till 28. And I got to the NFL, drafted by the Jags in 2009, second round, 39th overall, really had a super successful high school career, college career, had a great rookie season. And then, in my second year, I suffered this devastating back injury, herniated L5S1, really badly. Had excruciating sciatic nerve pain running down my right leg, I could barely feel my right foot on the ground. And that injury started this slow deconstruction of my physical body, where it just wasn't doing what I'd been used to it doing anymore. And I battled through it and I worked through it, and that you can listen to that on other podcasts. I can't talk about it right now. But essentially, I worked through the injuries, battled my ass off. My last year in Jacksonville, my 4th year in the NFL, had a horrible year. I'd come back from the back injury. In the midst of the back injury, I dislocated my shoulder. So I missed my 2nd and 3rd year. I basically played half seasons because I had the 2nd year herniated the disc, managed that, played through it until about week 7 when I dislocated my shoulder twice against the Chiefs and had to have season-ending shoulder surgery. Had the shoulder surgery, came back, shoulder was great, but went right into my 3rd year, which was the lockout. So we missed all of spring and came right in for training camp. My shoulder was fixed. My back was still fucked up. Then I have back surgery a week into training camp because I could barely be on. I'd go in for 3 plays, and I'm starting at right tackle. And I'd come out and I couldn't feel my fucking right leg. I was like, I don't know what to do, There's nothing I can do here. And so my head coach, he said, Eb, you got to have the back surgery. I'd had a number of epidurals injections in my back, and they did nothing. And thank God, Jack Del Rio, who I love, he was like, Eb, you got to just go have the back surgery. Come back. We need you this year. So about the 2nd week of training camp in my 3rd season, had back surgery, came back, felt amazing, was starting at left guard by week 2 or something. Was kicking ass, playing at a really high level. And then 11 weeks after that surgery, we're in Pittsburgh, and I wake up and my back is totally seized up. I can barely get out of bed. Turns out, took another month and 3 other MRIs to figure out I had an infection in the disc from the surgery.
Oh, dude, this is horrendous to hear.
Had to go 8 weeks of intravenous antibiotics. Missed the second half of that year. Worked my ass off back from that. I was at home during that time. I saw that the team had been sold and our head coach had been fired.
Yeah.
So came back for my 4th year. There was a new team owner, new head coach. The new head coach, for whatever reason, didn't like me very much. Maybe he viewed me as the banged up, angry veteran who wasn't going to be a part of his team. And really, he just looking back, it was hilarious because he was just busting my balls from the time he showed up. Mike Malarkey. We ended up having a horrible year. It was 2-14. And after that 4th season, I had worked my ass off, came back, was starting at left guard, got injured week 1, had a guy thrown into my left ankle, had a low high ankle sprain. It was just this, I couldn't get out of the injury mill, for 3 years basically in Jacksonville. By the time that 4th year ended, I had been benched about midway through the year, which totally destroyed me. Killed my confidence. I had been a team as my family guy. These coaches are my father figures. I'll do anything to be out on the field. And in that 4th year in Jacksonville, I really had the true confrontation with the business of football and seeing the mechanics of this thing that I had been a part of for so long unfolding on top of me. In a way that I had seen it happen to so many guys throughout my career, but this was now it was happening to me, and I was really getting this taste of what the business of football meant, which is basically that, the players were commodities, and as our bodies start to break down, there's a guy who's younger, who's fresher, who they can pay less money to do your job, and from a business standpoint, that's just kind of the way it works. And a coach, as much as he loves you and as much as he's, emotionally invested, he also has a job to keep and has family to feed. And, You know, it's you or him at the end of the day, honestly. And I love all of them, but that's just the truth of the matter, you know.
Yeah.
So after my 4th year in Jacks, I was really ready to be done. My love of the game had been completely crushed. My body was not doing what it had done for a long time. And I was ready to be done. Had a handful of conversations, my wife, my dad, you know, people who are very close to me. Everyone was super supportive for the most part. I mean, totally, honestly. I mean, everybody was like, hey, you know, you got to do what you got to do, and we're here for you either way, which was really great. And then I had a conversation with my teammate, Brad Meester, who ended up being a 14-year veteran for the Jags. One of my favorite guys of all time. Shout out to Brad if you ever listen to the Ebb and Flow podcast. Love to have Brad on the podcast.
Let's
He's
get
got
Brad
seven daughters. Lives in Iowa on his ranch. Making motorcycles and stuff. Yeah, total legend. Wore a camo suit to the draft one year. But Brad said to me, I said, Brad, I think I'm done, man. And he said, Eb, you know, every year I think I'm done. And I come back for one more day of practice, and I just take it one day at a time. And then I end up hanging in here for one more year. He's like, why don't you give it a shot with another team? Maybe you find your love for the game again. Maybe you end up somewhere that really appreciates you, and you find your love for this thing, and you have a great year. Or you go somewhere else and you realize you're totally done and you're over it, you know? But give yourself just one more shot to really, you know, to really squeeze the last of the juice out of the lemon, just to see if you've really given it everything you had. And I said, okay. So I got 2 workouts, the Seahawks and the Bears. Flew out to Seattle, worked out. They didn't want me. Flew out to Chicago. They signed me right away. Ended up having a really tremendous year with Chicago. Found my love for the game again. I was the 6th man swing tackle, and they built like a whole new position for me as this monster tight end, where I'd come in 20 to 30 times a game and just dominate. And the Chicago Tribune, or one of the Sun Times, one of them wrote this incredible article about me, where every time how much more productive the offense was when I was in. And it was amazing. It was like the year of football I'd always dreamed of. It was an incredible team. There was a lot of magic. We missed the playoffs by 1 year. It was a great group of coaches. I really felt that love for the game again. But then came back for my 2nd year there, signed another 1-year deal with them. And it was sort of back to the business of football, and that magic that had been there a year before was fading, and we weren't installing plays the same, and the coaches weren't really like everyone. We had this record-setting offense the first year in Chicago, and then the 2nd year it was like, I don't know, everybody was sort of taking it for granted, I think is the best way to put it. And so the whole team fell apart. I got cut after the last preseason game. I had torn my hamstring in the 2nd week of training camp.
Ugh.
I stepped in this hole during one-on-one pass rush, and my hamstring exploded. And so I missed I missed basically all of training camp. And before the last preseason game, I've got which I'm barely getting ready for. Like, I barely got a practice in before this final preseason game. And the O-line coach and all the coaches are like, hey, Eb, you should really play in this game. And I was like, okay. I mean, I was getting ready for it, but why are you guys being fucking weird about it? And I knew, I knew what was happening, because I could feel it was the same energy when the Jags just like totally detached themselves from me and the coaching staff. Like, I'm like looking at my O-line coach. I'm like, dude, what's going on? And he couldn't tell me anything. And it was that same, like, the energy drops, you're not one of their guys anymore. And that was really difficult for me, because I had spent like my entire career, I was like the golden child. You know, I was
Right.
like team captain, can do no wrong, and here I am. I'm like the exile. So it was really difficult, you know, for me emotionally to go through that. It was a great experience looking back. Very important experience for me to go through that. But so anyway, I get cut last game after last preseason game. Week 1, 4 of the starting O linemen go down in the first quarter, so they're calling me in the second half. And they're like,
Get out of here.
Eb, where are you? We were signing you back. I'm like, I'm down the street at my apartment in Chicago. I'm here, thanks. So I signed back, and just like the year was fucked up, and it was a mess, and it was back to that really dysfunctional like reality of what happens to a team when it's falling apart and the head coach doesn't have control, and the business of football is just revealing its ugly head. And my appendix burst during the bye
Dude,
week.
what are you talking
And it was
about?
all
This is
just
a
like
crazy,
I know,
ridiculous
and it's
story.
so insane, dude. It's so during the bye week, I flew home with my family. My high school retired my jersey, and my appendix ruptures at the ceremony. I'm doubled over. I have to
Out
have
of
an
here.
emergency appendectomy in LA. I spend my bye week in the hospital in LA. I got to call the team. I'm late getting back. I miss a whole week. And I come back and I'm like 30 pounds lighter. And I'm just like, I found myself, man. I'd slowly like worked myself back. It was mid-season. There was about 8 games left. They basically said, Eb, the next 4 games, just rest, get your weight back, lift weights, build yourself back up. We'll look at getting you back into the rotation at the end of the year. So I was like, okay. So I did that for the next month, and then found myself practicing again. And it was this one day I'm sitting there in the film room in Chicago watching this practice tape. And I'm in so much pain, just head to toe. Like my neck hurts. I've been having to get weekly checkups with a doctor to make sure, like blood checks to make sure there's no more toxic matter floating through my bloodstream from the burst appendix. And I'm popping pills just to sit through meetings, Adderall and painkillers and anti-inflammatories, and I've got like huge amounts of dip in and chewing tobacco. I'm just and I'm watching
Yep.
this film, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm watching myself at right tackle lined up against this defensive end, and it was so clear. I'm watching this, I'm going, man, I used to want to kill that guy when I'd go out there. Like I used to have so much rage and so much anger and so much like a taste for the competition, and I have none of that. I don't even care. And I'm in so much pain. And this coach behind me running this tape, who, God bless him, I love the guy, but he doesn't give a fuck like how much pain I'm in. I'm sitting here thinking it's glorious to go through all of this. And this guy back here, if I walked out today, he'd just plug another guy in, and it wouldn't make any difference to him. I'm like, what am I doing this for? There's 1,000 places I'd rather be than right here in this room. That was the thought. And I knew, I was like, I'm done, because it was that thing. It's like in these highly competitive, volatile environments, if you're not totally into it, engaged, activated, ready for the battle, you're going to get somebody hurt. You're going to get somebody killed. You're going to get yourself hurt, And that was really the moment when I knew I was done. And so the universe brought me a lot of messages. There were a lot of
That's freaking
signs along
interesting.
the way. Yeah.
That
Yeah.
dude, I appreciate you telling me that story. That's like it's super interesting, and there's a few I don't know, just sort of loose statements. One is That's a crazy story, dude. Like, I mean, the appendix, like all the other ones, you're like, yeah, yeah, okay, like neck, shoulder, okay, got it. And then my
Back.
appendix, and you're like, what the fuck, dude, your appendix? Anyway, that was
I
wild.
know.
But
It was
it
nuts.
honestly makes me like, one thing is, and maybe we could dig into it, but there's so much of your um, self-image uh,
Mm.
in my certain I know in my case, and it sounds like maybe in your case as well. There's like I was I have always been the athlete, the captain of the team, the go getter, the one who's like pull ebb in, pull chase in, like
Yeah,
we'll get
yeah,
this freaking dialed in,
yeah,
and it's like no, like I am this guy, and if that gets called into question, then if you're and this is just the way it works. I think when you're younger, your your whole self image is wrapped up in like what you do and how you do it, and if for whatever reason that is unavailable, um, I think you said it well, that like emotionally it throws everything into whack because you're like all of a sudden like your job goes away, or like this one
yeah,
piece of life gets called into question, and that like goes right to the core of you, and it's like who
yeah,
am I, and you're like holy shit, I wasn't ready to answer this question.
yeah,
This is too much.
yeah,
And when it doesn't happen on your timeline, when it's like somebody else or something else just says like, oh, we're gonna have to think about this now, it's extremely uncomfortable and really
absolutely.
freaking disconcerting. And then just the last thing I would say is uh man, like I don't know if you've ever read uh, it's called The Second Mountain by David Brooks.
Mm, I
Really
love
interesting book.
that.
And like I'm going to bastardize this concept, but the bottom line is like he has this concept of everybody has to climb the first mountain in life, and that's
Mm,
essentially like you've got to climb this first mountain, which is sort of like convincing yourself or like self actualizing who you are, and like proving to yourself that that's who you are and like what you're capable of, and proving to people around you what you who you are and what you're capable of. And that's like let me get into the good school, let me get the right job, let me get all these accolades and the pieces of paper and whatever else. And you have to climb that mountain and get to the top of it to then realize that that is not enough, and that's never going to make you
yeah.
get you to the point where you feel satisfied. And
Mm,
then when you crest that first mountain, you see the second mountain behind it, and it's like, oh, that's okay. I had to climb this one to be able to even see that one, but that one is like, okay, what am I doing for my community? What am I doing for my family? And how am I going to make the world a better place? And how am I going to, no kidding, serve selflessly and leave the world better than I found it? That's like, okay, now I see I see this, and I'm going to embark on that because like I've already sort of done that thing, and I've already proven to myself that I am who I think I am, and I am like a worthwhile person, and I work hard, I love hard, I like I've got all the like the paperwork on the wall, and I did these things, and yes, I of course, but now I'm ready to like to actually self actualize and become the person that I'm meant to be. And I wonder if in your case, um, when you're sitting in that film room, and you're like, I don't. This used to be a situation where now my whole self-image is called into question. Who is Eb, and shit, if this gets taken away, who am I going to be, and what's going to become of me? And at that point, you're like, no, I know who I am and what I'm about, and I see this, and this is no longer, the juice is no longer worth the squeeze for me. And I'm like, I'm thinking about other things now. There's 1,000 places I'd rather be. I'm okay. Now I know that it's my time to sort of like take steps in that direction.
absolutely, dude. I love that. The second mountain. One of my mentors lately, he talks about that a lot. I don't know if he's referencing that book in particular, but as a as a spiritual allegory for one's life, it's always you climb the first mountain to see what the peak truly is of the second mountain that you're supposed to climb. And for me, it really came down to, and it always does. And I think that I'm going to say exactly what you said in different words, but my whole sense of self was built on these external variables. of who people told me I was, the success of even, being a dominant football player, etc. And when your self-image, your sense of self is built on these external things, you're literally, you've got a foundation of toothpicks, and all it takes is one thing to go wrong, and that entire model of yourself is obliterated. You know what I mean?
Right.
And you're left going, whoa, I thought I was pretty good, but now I realize I don't even know how the fuck I was doing any of that, Because for me, that was so much of my experience was like the getting injured and the getting benched crushed my confidence, which was the true power that I was unknowingly wielding, Like I was unbeatable. And then I became totally broken. And it was like, every time I stepped out on the field, I was like, am I going to get my ass kicked today? Whereas that had never been a thought before.
Right.
And that was because my whole thing was built on just the external inevitabilities of being a really talented, big athlete who, I was super violent in my play because that's just, I had a lot of rage to get out. And, when my body wasn't allowing me to do those things anymore, it was like, who am I? What am I supposed to be doing? This is fucked. I'm a failure, and I had to go through that process of putting myself back together, which is the foundation of my true work in this life, to be this messenger.
Like we were saying earlier.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, exactly, dude.
It's like you got to go through that freaking crucible to
absolutely.
That's where the growth is. That's where the opportunity is.
Absolutely, man.
It's
So
really interesting.
This has been excellent, dude. And I really want to talk about how you formulated your company. Do you feel like, we could do a part 2 or we could get it rolling right now.
Dude, I'm game for whatever, man. I'd love to do a part 2. I'd love to stick around, man. I'm on your schedule. Whatever's best for you.
I could go like 20 more minutes.
Sweet.
Can we do it in that time?
Let's figure it out.
Yeah, we'll just do it. We'll see where we go. So you come out of the military and you decide you want to go into business school. That's your direction.
Yeah, man. That was, I didn't know what I didn't know. One of the reasons when I was like 17, 18, one of the reasons I chose to go to the Naval Academy is like, this is a really great school. And if I do this, I probably won't have to go get a master's or anything. I just like, this is great. I'll just be one and done and get out of there. I was never really on my horizon. But obviously grew up a little bit and found myself interested in business and curious about it all and realizing I didn't know anything about anything. I was like, man, I just, business school just ended up being a really incredible value proposition where I was like, oh man, like I can go to this place. They're going to essentially just can all of the functional areas that I need. They'll just teach me the basics, finance and accounting and marketing and whatever else. And then once I get a taste for it, I can kind of figure out where my proclivities lie and what I'm interested in, and it'll be great. And luckily for me, I had 10 years in the military to lean on, and I had the GI Bill and all that, so to help with school. So it was kind of a no-brainer. And
definitely, I
was super fortunate to have guys ahead of me that I could call and be like, hey, you're at school X, tell me about it. You're at school Y, like is it worth it? Is this school good? What are the pros and cons, et cetera, et cetera? So I wound up at Wharton in Philly. So
amazing.
Yes, it was like, I cannot say enough about that school and the people there. It's both the faculty, the administration, the students. It was an incredible 2 years. And bottom line is, in the first week, you know, I went in there kind of thinking like, oh, this is my new life. I'm gonna like, I'm a new guy. I'm a civilian now. This is gonna be great. I'm gonna make all these. I want to make friends with people unlike me that have come from dissimilar backgrounds and all that. And in the first week, we were all at like a function, some kind of like, networking function or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And it's like all the guys that like looked, walked, acted the same ended up in the same corner. So it was like a
Uh-huh.
bunch of guys, and we're all looking at each other, kind of like, shooting the shit. And then it's like, what'd you do before? He's like, oh, I was in the army. It's like, shit, I was in the Navy. What'd you do? He's like, oh, I played Major League Baseball. Oh shit, I was in the NFL. And we're like, oh, okay. Like we've all found each other, birds of a
Yeah.
feather kind of a deal. And one of those guys in that group was my buddy Evan, who I ended up who's my partner in this business, Verb. So the short and long of it is we freaking uh, you know commiserated we bonded really over just like the shared service, shared background, all that kind of good stuff. And he was a uh, Army Ranger beforehand, and so we had a lot to talk about. West Point grad, so we
Mm.
we talked a requisite amount of shit to each other before we became friends about all that. But the bottom line is we became fast friends and became like, really tossing around all these ideas about what we wanted to do and entrepreneurship and this, that, and the other. And we both sort of kind of in parallel would just kind of bitch and complain about, hey, we're banged up, stress, issues with sleep, pain, inflammation, etc. And it kind of occurred to us, on a Friday night after school, we're like, man, we're out now. We're out of the military. We can try these natural solutions to these issues that we weren't able to beforehand. And
Mm.
so we
Mm.
tried a ton of different CBD based products,
Mm.
and it was like really kind of touch and go. We found some that worked, some that didn't. Most were
Yeah.
very complex in terms of like, for a guy like me that is just trying to onboard, I didn't really know what I was looking for, and I didn't know how to make decisions about which product to choose and this, that, and the other. And so um, that complexity combined with basically like very opaque manufacturing practices, opaque brands that were built for, feminine kind of crunchy wellness type
Yeah.
consumers versus, you know, uh, like weed culture, Cheech and Chong kind of stuff. I was just like, I don't know, man. None of this is like speaking my language. I'm looking for like tactical tools that are effective, that are natural, don't have, all these ingredients that I can't pronounce. I don't want any of that shit. I want the goodness, and I want it targeted, and I just want to solve my problem. That's it. And so we kind of like as a, on a lark, we are going through grad school and ended up talking to a bunch of formulators and manufacturers, and we ended up finding this incredible team out of California of researchers and pharmacologists who we basically took our hypothesis to. We're like, hey, um, we've done the research. We think that we can build these products in a way that's clean, effective, and very targeted. Um, what do you think? And essentially, we went into like a 6 month R&D process after that, and came out with products that we were actually really fired up about. So we came up with um, work, rest, and recover. So work is the one you mentioned beforehand. It's our daytime blend for daytime stress and focus. Rest is our nighttime blend for obviously restorative sleep. And then finally, recover is the topical for pain and inflammation. And essentially, we put it out to our classmates, to um, buddies that were veterans, that just like, hey, we've built these products. What do you think? And we just got like an incredible, we just got incredible feedback. And, it came to the point where we were in our second year at business school, and we're like, looking at the normal MBA jobs that you get into after school, and both of us were like, man, I'm like passionate about this. This is like we're out there solving our own problem. Other people have this problem too, and we are doing something that we're proud of, and that is actually making a difference. And so we decided to pull the trigger and start the company and take it on full time after business school. And so we're about a year into that, which is exciting and scary and all of it. And yeah, we're fired up about it. We give 10% of our profits to a military veteran nonprofit. So that's still kind of like, in our DNA. And I got to tell you, it's like, it's fun, it's exciting, it's scary, it's all the things that I usually that are indicative to me of there's something good behind door number three. It's like I'm gonna freaking power through this thing, and again, it's just a fulfilling gig.
Absolutely, dude. I dig it. Seriously, man, the work tincture, no bullshit, is one of my all-time favorite CBD tinctures I've ever taken.
Dude, I
Um,
love that.
and it's a super sophisticated blend that you've got here. I'm going to read the ingredients just because I love them. You've got the hemp seed oil, the CBD isolate, ginseng, rhodiola rosea, which, if you don't know about that, super powerful adaptogenic root, I believe. Just like ginseng, these are powerful, ancient, adaptogenic herbs, remedies that do all sorts of incredible things in the human body. L-tyrosine, you've got the whole B complex, you've got GABA, you've got a terpene blend in there. Um, and something that I think that's so cool is my last year in Jacksonville, when I decided I was going to give football another shot, I was lifting weights at this local gym in Ponte Vedra Beach, and I came across this guy who's one of my good friends to this day. His name's Tim, and he's like this little dude from the backwoods of Alabama who was like the mayor of this gym. I'd be on the Stairmaster for an hour every morning at like 5:30, and I'd see this guy. He would just like walk around the gym and say hello to everybody. And one day I got off the Stairmaster, and he came up to me. He's like, "Boy, you're climbing mountains, boy." I was like, yeah, man. I'm getting it in. And
That's
he's
funny.
like, he was basically like, "You ever heard of ginseng or chaga mushrooms?" And I was like, "I've heard of ginseng, never heard of chaga mushrooms." And we became good buddies. And he started feeding me all of these. I call him my witch doctor because he turned me on to the functional mushrooms, chaga,
Mhm.
cordyceps, reishi, turkey tail, turned me on to ashwagandha, turned me on to ginseng. He would go to China and meet with these green tea farmers and source all of these products, really honestly just for his own experimentation. And then he would give these products out to people at the gym. And he'd get like elk antler and all kinds of good stuff. And so when I came out of football and I got heavily involved in cannabis advocacy, and having been a cannabis user basically throughout my career, and then being turned on by Tim to making all of these concoctions in my slow cooker like chaga teas and all sorts of cool stuff, I was like, there's a really important thing that's being missed here of combining cannabinoids with these ancient adaptogenic
Mhm.
herb substances. And I think you guys have hit the nail on the head, because there's very few CBD products I take. And I took, my last 4 years in football, I took tons of Adderall. I
Mhm.
was experiencing significant cognitive decline as a result of all the subconcussive hits I'd endured throughout my career. And I was living in a state of depression and fog. And Adderall really helped me climb out of that, only to leave me dependent on it and fucking a
Right.
shell of myself at the end of the day.
Mhm.
So when I came out of football, and I had the very real experience of knowing that Adderall was not serving me anymore, I was looking for these natural alternatives, which I found in the adaptogenic substances and various strains of cannabis and different sativas, etc., that helped give me that focus that I was looking for. And dude, I mean, the work tincture that you guys do, it's like a nootropic. It's amazing. Seriously, it
Yeah.
really, it does the trick of what it says it's going to do. Like, you get super focused, but you're also very calm. Like, on the label, it says calm and focus, and that's no bullshit. Like, you're super dialed in. You know, and one of the problems I always said with Adderall was you become like a robot, essentially, because you become completely task oriented and mechanical about your process and your approach. And the problem with that, though, is that when you get taken out of the flow of whatever job you're doing, like, you know, I would use it when I would write, or I would use it when I was, you know, doing X, Y, or Z, cleaning the house, organizing something, etc. I'd get a phone call, and then I'd get like totally tapped into the phone call.
Yeah.
But it would be almost impossible for me to get back into the flow of the thing that I had taken the Adderall for, which would then lead to frustration and anxiety, and then like, oh, let me take another half of Adderall to catch the dragon again, so that I can go back to this thing that I was doing. But with products like yours, especially, what I found is that focus transcends that thing, and you can sort of hop from one thing to the other seamlessly. If a phone call comes, you can answer the phone call and have the conversation, and then dive right back into the work that you've been doing, which I think is really important. And I've talked to a lot of people, you know, obviously I've had a lot of friends that, I think we've all had friends at this stage that have become dependent or heavily in need of Adderall to do whatever it is they're doing. And I totally get it. But it's unfortunate, and it's always the same. It's like, oh, at 3:00 in the afternoon, I fall off the cliff and into the Black Depression, and I have to start smoking weed or drinking alcohol or take another pill or do the other thing, you know, to reset myself. And then you're just in this really destructive cycle, you know? And your products are an answer to that, dude. So I got to commend you and give acknowledgement to that. You guys have really tapped into something I think is really special. And that's why I wanted to bring you on and support you in whatever way I can, because good products in this realm are really important, and I'm passionate about exposing those to people, because there's a lot of people who need that, you know.
Dude, that means a lot to hear you say that, man. Yeah, I'm speechless. I appreciate it, and that's exactly why we built these things. You know, like the at the end of the day, particularly for work, you know, you can get frantic. You can be. Speaking for myself, I could get to a point where I was like so frantic as to be unable to like actually complete the things I needed to complete.
Yeah.
I would sometimes be like, you know, have so much of that, whatever it is, anxiety, that I couldn't, that I'd just be paralyzed. I'm like, shit, I don't even know where to start, like whatever it is. And this, at least for me, when I like built these things and tried for myself, I was like, you know what, this is exactly what I'm looking for. I want to be able to calmly take a breath, look around, set my priorities, and then start taking care of the alligators closest to the boat in a way that
Nice.
I'm just calmly executing. And like that is what we tried to build, and I think that's what we did. And like hearing you say that is you know, just freaking fires me up, man. I'm like, I got another 8 hours of work in me now based on that, so I'm fired up.
Awesome, dude. Well, I'm not just talking shit, and I don't really pump products unless they work. So your products work, and you've done a great job, man. So I appreciate you.
I sincerely
and the
appreciate
work
it,
you've
bud.
done. Yeah, man. I mean, I got to run to the next thing, but I want you to shout out where everybody can find your products. I'd love to have you on the pod again. I feel like we could talk for hours and hours, and get Evan on as well. That'd be fun.
Yeah,
Um,
100%. There's a shit. I got a ton of questions. One of these days, I'll start a podcast. I got a heap of questions for you, but we'll get into that maybe
totally,
next time.
dude.
But anyway, yeah, I appreciate it, brother. We are at we're Verb Labs. That's VRB, Victor Romeo Bravo labs.com. Verb Labs. Um, Gosh, how about I'd love it, if anybody's down to check it out, I'll set up right after this a code.
Oh yeah,
I'll
we're
call it
gonna do that, I think.
sweet. So I'll call it what do you think? Eben or Flow, or what do you think?
Ebb
What's
and
your favorite?
flow.
What's your Ebb and Flow? Let's do that. Ebb and Flow 20 for 20% off.
I
And
love it.
again, like I appreciate you having me on, and I appreciate y'all for listening. And yeah, man, this it means a lot. I really do appreciate it.
You're the man, Chase. Appreciate you, brother.
You
And
are.
lots of luck to you. We're here supporting, and I'm sure we'll have another conversation down the line. Check it out, everybody. Verb Labs, VRBLabs.com. Great products. Seriously, very high quality, high potency. I recommend them. And that's about it. I appreciate you, man. Have an excellent rest of your day.
You
And
too. Thanks, bro.
lots of love to all you guys out there. Thank you for listening as always. I'll see y'all on the flip side. Peace.